Hello, guys. Thank you for joining us today, and we are excited to have you as we are going to be discussing the first verse of the Bible, which is Genesis 1, verse 1. I will read in your hearing. It's easy to find because it's the first book of the Bible. It says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And we end there. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There's nothing else to really add to that. I always think about the beginning as an empty space with nothing. I don't even think air was there. Was it there? I don't know. But it's an empty space which demonstrates the power of God to create out of nothing, and bring things into existence. And also just to realize that when he had this creation in mind, he actually had us humans in mind. It's something that we'll obviously cover as we finish off our discussion today. But then it's a carefully thought process when he thought of creation, that out of nothing he created something. And the only thing that I found to have existed before nothing else existed was God himself, because it doesn't talk of God creating himself. It talks of God creating other things. So he's a self-existent God, a self-existent God creating from non-existent matter.
True.
So it's a debate because there are theories that have been brought forward, guys.
The thing about creation is that we as human beings, we try to, box everything up into a way that we can understand and it's logical to us. So the idea of a self-existent God who has been there throughout eternity, who has no beginning, who has no ending, it's a hard concept for us to understand, because we exist in 3 dimensions, time, space, and what?
Matter.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's true, but
isn't it matter? We exist in matter, like in things that are tangible.
So our world is physical. So we can only occupy a certain place at a certain time. Now, being told now that there is a God who is omnipresent, who can be in existence everywhere and anywhere, is a hard concept for us to grasp. Even still harder. Do you know, as human beings, we can't comprehend nothing. Here's the thing. Scientists theorize, even now, we can't really say for sure because we haven't been there to prove it. They theorize that we're on planet Earth, right? And our Earth is in a solar system. And our solar system is in a galaxy. And our galaxy, among with other billions of galaxies, we are in the universe. Now, what if there's something beyond the universe? If there's something, then beyond that, there's what they call nothing. And nothing is not a vacuum, because that's something. It's not air, because air is something.
It is,
and it's not darkness, because darkness is something. So understanding the concept of nothing also is difficult for us to grasp. So even still harder to understand that this all-powerful being who created things out of nothing, and he doesn't have a beginning and he has no ending. It's very difficult for us to understand. Hence, strange ideas come.
But then maybe if we can elaborate, not really elaborate, but get the meaning of the Hebrew terms that are used in this verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It might give us an understanding, or it might open up for us to discuss more about the verse, because we don't want to get into the other verses. We just want to dwell much more on that, and then obviously touch a little bit on the entire creation.
Well, I'm just going to read it. I'm just going to express it in the Hebrew, right? So in the Hebrew, it is rendered as Bereshit, Elohim bara Hashemayim Haraetz, which means, okay, starting with the first word, which is Bereshit, is in essence saying in the beginning, because the prefix of the word is actually Be, which means in or by, or it's actually a presuppose, it's a, what you call that English term?
Preposition.
Preposition, thank you. Yeah, so it is a preposition. So it could be in or by the beginning or any of those prepositions.
Okay.
But what becomes amazing, or what becomes of note, is that there's no there, the definite article there.
Okay.
So it actually rendered as in beginning God created heaven and earth. So there's no in the beginning God created it. So when you hear it in that instance, or when you hear it from that rendition, you realize that it's not a narrative that tells you of what's going to be happening, but in essence it's a disclaimer to say to begin with.
Also, it's just telling us
It's a disclaimer.
in beginning.
Yeah,
that's
in
what
beginning,
happened.
basically.
So why did we put it there?
Well, we put the there to make sense. You know, when people have to translate one language, like we spoke in our previous.
Does it change the context there?
It could change the context because of understanding, especially when a person has to read it. You know, hence vigorous Bible study is important so that we actually don't misunderstand the expressions. So, in essence, it's a disclaimer to say in beginning before we can say anything. And also, it doesn't even tell us the point of the beginning. If you notice, it doesn't tell us the point of the beginning. It just says to begin with, you know. So we don't really know what the beginning is. We can know what the beginning of life is, as calculated by scientists when they say it's 1 billion years or whatever. But in truth, we don't know what the beginning is. We can only know who the beginning is, but not when the beginning was. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very interesting that when it begins, whether you're saying in the beginning or in beginning,
it sounds so wrong to say in beginning.
That's why
It's bad English.
the dynamic equivalent would add the definite article to say in the beginning to make it more sense and more readable for those who are English speakers. But it's very interesting that there are a lot of people, good Christian people, I believe, who have written many books to prove creation and even to prove that God exists. And there are a lot of debates and arguments, but the Bible does not begin in explaining why God exists or trying to convince you that God exists.
Actually exists.
It just tells you that there is God. It doesn't tell you where he came from because he doesn't have a beginning. It just tells you in the beginning, this God is the one who created the heavens and earth, and the narration carries on. So everything else that you're going to read from this book, you have to bear that one sentence in mind, that in the beginning, God created. So this God, you cannot now question what he's going to say later on. To say, okay, who are you for me to listen to you? Like, I created. So there's no debate to say, should we obey God or shouldn't we obey him?
I think what you just said explains other stories or narrations in the Bible where God was even angry with his own creation, and he had that power to say, you know what, I think I might just destroy what I created, So it goes back into us being obedient to what God actually says to us. And also just the existence of God and him opening up a creation protocol or a creation process. It proves that he had something beautiful in mind. And when he created, the first thing that he created was heaven and earth. But then he goes on to say, still, it didn't end there. Like that earth was void. The skies were void. So I can't even try to imagine what the sky looked like.
Earth was void.
Oh, the earth was void. Yes. Oh, wait, it says in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Yes. The earth was void. Darkness was over the surfaces, right? And only his spirit was hovering
Yes.
upon
over
the
heap.
surfaces, right?
Yeah.
And then now I try to imagine how I try to imagine an empty earth. Because anything that I think of on an empty earth is something that was created on top of, something. So it gives me this super intellectual ability of God that you can't even try and imagine. Because if you can, okay, what do you think of when you think of the earth?
Oh, see.
If I say describe the earth without form,
Oh,
how would you describe it?
I can't imagine it. It's beyond my comprehension. I don't know.
If you want to think of a stone, probably they came after.
Yeah.
If you want to think of the things that cover the earth,
But it was void.
Yeah.
It
that's
means
the thing. What did it
What
look
does it look
like?
like?
Yeah. So just that thought, I'm like, how beautiful is God? How beautiful is God that He can create something that is beyond human imagination and make it so beautiful.
Can I toss a spanner into the engine? You know, in as much as the narrative of the Bible, it says the earth was without form and was void. Was earth created before light? As far as the narrative of the text tells us,
Yes, it
the
was
earth
created before light.
Okay, maybe maybe it's an argument
Because
for-
it says darkness
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
just there,
Yeah.
hovering upon the waters. And now light had to come after
Yeah.
because he's like, okay, it's too dark.
Okay.
And then let there be light. So, yeah. And when I was just doing a little bit of reading, I don't know, because I haven't really, honestly, I didn't take enough time to look into it, but it says that there are 3 instances that show that God actually used, I think you mentioned something bara or
In
bara.
Barashit, or the
Yes.
term of
Yes, it
or
says he
Rashid.
used it in 3 occasions here, where 3 times in creation account where that was actually used in the Hebrew form. The first is 1 verse 1. He created the heaven and the earth.
Okay.
The other one is 1 verse 21. So he created large creatures of every kind. And then 1 verse 27, where he created man in his own image. The rest, it speaks of God saying, let there be.
Okay.
Let there be. He didn't create. He was just saying, let there be. Let there be. Let there be. So when I thought of it, I'm thinking, was there something peculiar about those 3 things that he had to create them? And the rest he had to just speak into existence, or it's just a matter of using different words? What do you guys think?
Wow.
Because it's very interesting. Like there, it talks about God creating the heavens and the earth. And then verse 21, he created the great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly. So you can't exactly say it was just the living creatures, because there were land creatures that were, they were said, let them come forth, right? They were not like use the same phrase as the sea living creatures. And also when it comes to man, obviously, man was created. So you begin to wonder now, is there something similar about these 3 elements where you have the heaven and the earth and the sea creatures and man?
Yes.
You ask that question. Well, I don't know, but I'm just finding it curious.
Isn't it? Well, like, let me just be imaginative.
Yes.
And
that's how
may
it
God
was.
forgive me for using my imagination. Aren't these other things inevitables of what God creates? In essence, to say when he actually creates, he creates them with an intent, right? And within that intent, there are inevitables, and then that's where they actually are called out in terms of it. I mean, in the differences, man, I could be sinning here. I could be sinning, but I could assume that those creatures, all other things that were called out, as opposed to being created, as Sister Charity expresses, could be the inevitables of what God actually brings forth.
Okay. I don't know what our
That's an
viewers wanna add to our discussion, because honestly, when I found that, I was like, okay, it's understandable heaven and earth to be created. It's understandable for a man to be created, and then the sea creatures.
Sea creatures.
I really didn't understand it, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around it and thinking that I can't say it's the only living thing, because I mean already he has created vegetation. They are living, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we would want to learn from you guys. If you've got an answer for us, I just brought it up because I found it and I was keen to know what you guys would think about it, or if you had an answer. So let's hear what others are going to say about it.
Yes.
But also another interesting thing is everything else was made from nothing, right? There was no pre-existing matter. Okay, you want to debate?
Yeah, well, I don't want to debate it.
Okay, let me make my point first. So it says that everything else was spoken into existence. So if I say let there be light, it's not like there was some minor light somewhere that he wanted to, you know. Yeah. But then it's the creation of Adam that I actually wanted to go into, where as much as everything else he had to speak into existence, they were not existing. With Adam, he was created from pre-existing matter. So the dust of the earth that was created. And then from Adam, we also see Eve being created from him, you know, a pre-existing matter. So what I then thought, these are my thoughts, this is not biblical, it's my thoughts. I then thought that I think God could have just said, let there be man, and men just sprang out of nowhere. But it helps us to think deeper into how man has existed into generations when we pinpoint to, okay, this, we came from this, that this way our substance is, and even when we die, that's why it says dust to dust. Otherwise, if man is to die, where would
Men go.
You know? So I was just thinking about that. And then I also thought that having to be created from something that was already there, it's God having laid up a foundation for our lives to say, you know what, I see this is beautiful. And out of this beauty, I'm going to create a much more beautiful and complex creation, which is a human being. So I found it to be the creative nature of God, and him being artistic. It's like, okay, I spoke everything into existence, but I can also show you that out of what I've already created, I still can make something beautiful out of it, you know. So yeah, I thought it was quite interesting to think of.
And also, like, when you're looking at the creation of man, and by the way, when I say man, it's scientific man, like mankind.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily saying that I'm talking about Adam, but it's
All right.
mankind, meaning both male and female.
Okay.
Adam and Eve. God says, let us make man. All the other time, there's no time where God says, okay, now let us make sea creatures. But when it comes to man, he says, let us make man. After
Took his time.
Yeah. So it's like, now, if I can say his crowning act of creation, similar to what you were actually saying, was man. And man was the final act, and
Save the best for the last.
exactly. And man was the only creature that was created in God's image.
In the likeness of God.
Yeah.
I think he had all this thing calculated together, you know. How I find this to be so fascinating is when God was creating, not even man, I'm just talking of the entire creation. If he had missed just the freezing point of water by a single or half a degree, it would actually change a lot of things that are in existence right now, like rain, and snow and whatnot. And even if he had just missed a little bit of aligning the seasons, things wouldn't be in balance. So it's the calculation to it when he's creating that proves to me that this was not a Big Bang theory. It was a carefully thought process. And I think all the physics is there, the mathematics is there, all the science is there, which makes him a superior person, because we want to elevate scientists and say, no, Mother Nature, all of this was science proves that it all came from, it sprung out from nature, and these theories,
The interesting thing about the theories outside from the Bible that discuss the existence of life, the existence of the earth, the existence of us, they here and now they change based on so-called new discoveries. A lot of people don't know that the scientists used to believe that the universe was eternal, that it was always there before the Big Bang theory came. But the fact that they saw as if the universe was having an origin point, kind of like growing like this, that's where they came up with the crazy idea that there was a Big Bang, instead of saying that that was creation. They couldn't exactly say, okay, there was a creator. They had to come up with another idea aside from, God. So the fact that they brought the idea of the Big Bang proved that there was an origin. Yes, they missed the point in who was responsible for that origin, of course being God. But they admitted that, okay, there's a beginning.
There's a beginning to something.
But we can't really also criticize scientists that much, because as a gradual study, there's now what we call quantum physics. And from the quantum physical aspect, or as a philosophy as well, they actually now realize that no, actually there was something beyond what traditional science is, or Newtonian science is. Of course, Newtonian science is actually derived from the idea of doubting, to say before you can actually believe something, first of all doubt it and then work your way exactly.
Prove it.
So from the Newtonian versus the quantum, now you realize that the quantum actually brings out the aspect of creation, to say no, actually things have meaning behind them. They are not just coincidence. And in fact, it goes to a point of saying that the things that are invincible are actually the ones that have an impact on the things that are visible. And that's what quantum physics actually promotes or stands on. So it is a gradual study. It is a gradual understanding. It's a gradual thing to.
But look at it this way also. Theory of evolution, Charles Darwin. Did the guy not confess during his last hours or days, I don't know, minutes here on earth? I stand to be corrected, but in some reading, I think there's him acknowledging that actually
his theory is not entirely that.
Yes. And it's something that has been instilled in us, and it's taught.
That's what they
throughout.
They don't tell us that.
But they don't tell us that even the man himself, in the end, when he was about to die, he also, I don't know what you think.
To be honest, that I've also not read it for myself, but heard the allusion to that's what he admitted. But I want to also just dive a little bit more on what Brother Tsepo was saying, that there's quantum physics and so forth. True science in itself would actually see that creation is the result of life. The problem is that evolution, being a theory, is now accepted as a fact, as a scientific theory. But it's not scientific. Because for something to be scientific, it has to be measurable, it has to be repeatable.
Yes, replicated again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So doing science honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, because we're not
Yeah.
anti-science. Just because you're a Christian, you say, okay, science is wrong. No. Gravity
Yes.
exists,
Yes.
whether you believe in it
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
So when it came to Charles Darwin, actually, it was a mixture of science with philosophy. It was not more of doing like real scientific research, measurable and quantifiable. No, it was just somebody surmising to say, what if,
Yeah.
And then, of course, a lot of people who are people who subscribe to evolution have written several material on this matter. But they say in a passage or two, or maybe one line, their argument for not accepting creation would be they simply just didn't want to believe. Because you cannot deny things like, we spoke about matter before. Okay, they'll say that there was this Big Bang. But for you to have the Big Bang, there had to be matter.
Yes.
So where did that matter come from? That's where they get stuck. But it would make more sense to say there was an uncreated creator who brought this matter into existence. So for it to have a cause, there has to be an initial uncaused cause
Yes.
that, initiated that creation. So some of them, they get stuck and they just admit, well, there must be a creator of some kind. But they won't tell you that it's the creator of the Bible.
God being the superb scientist, the greatest engineer, and
Yes.
he has proven it, through the creation. Because if it's something that is so debatable, we don't debate where children come from.
No.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
pretty much obvious. But the fact that we have over and over again tried to really prove where things came from, it just shows that we can't understand the way God works, And what's more beautiful is taking this and applying it to our lives. If God can create out of nothing, try and imagine what he can do in you as a person. It says, create in me a new heart. I think if you talk to any cardiologist, and a surgery on the heart is itself very complex. And to create a new heart, in a laboratory, it's something that you can't just wake up and say, you know what, all that go to waste. We need to have a new heart. But God can do that. It might not necessarily mean that he's taking this heart out and putting a new heart. It's our mind, it's our thoughts, our way of life. God can do new things in us. If you try and imagine the beauty of creation from Genesis, try and think of what he can do to you now. There are a lot of people who've made so many mistakes in their lives. And they've done the most terrible things that anyone can think of, and they think, you know what, I don't think I can be saved. But God can still create a new being in you. God can still create a new person altogether. And it's such comforting to know that the same creator who made all things beautiful for us can still make you a beautiful person. We don't know what you've done, what I've done, and what we have done as beings, but to just know that he has that power and that powerful intellect. He is that creative to create something new, something beautiful. It just shows to me that God had beauty in mind when he thought of everything. Just think of how from an empty earth, now we can see the beauty of spring flowers and what have you, the autumn, when you see all those beautiful leaves falling, and even the art that you see when you see a dry tree without no leaves. That's art. For me, that's art. And all of those things, it all explains the beauty of God. It explains what he had in his mind throughout creation.
True.
I don't know, guys, if you think that we have anything else to add to this, but I think God created heaven and earth and everything in it. The Bible doesn't say God created the universe, but the fact that he created heaven and earth and everything in it. So anything you might think of, it came from God.
Yeah.
So there is nothing that we can claim to be ours. And that only also leads to us being entirely obedient to him.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if a child does not want to listen to me and it's a child of mine, I have the authority to stomp my feet and say, no, you are my child in my house. You do what we do in this house. You know, if I, a human parent, can do that,
What more?
what more of God?
Yeah.
You know?
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I don't think you guys have got anything to add to this.
No, just in conclusion, the fact that you have intelligent beings walking across the planet, driving cars, inventing cell phones. The idea of actually saying that came out of nothing is ridiculous. Somebody once said, and I believe it's true, it takes more faith to believe in evolution than to believe the Bible.
I think so. I was not an ape.
Because there's a lot of gaps you have to fill in. There's a lot of assumptions that you just have to accept.
It's true.
But from the beginning, the Word of God tells you who created. And it gives you a narration of people who had experiences with God, supernatural experiences. So for me, why not believe that God created in the beginning?
I think it's something that we can all agree that the more complex it gets, the more it points to God. And appreciating what God has done throughout creation will make it so much easier for us to appreciate everything and his plan for salvation.
Exactly.
And everything that he has for us as human beings. It was such a beautiful thing to talk about creation with you guys. Please let us know, share your thoughts. There's a lot of debates and myths around creation, but ultimately we believe that God created the heavens and the earth and everything in it. And in summary, he created everything, which includes you and me, and he can still continue with the work of creation and making us new beings day after day. So nothing can disqualify us in his presence, but rather his supernatural power and intelligence and creativity makes us worthy to stand and claim that God is the creator of everything. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you in the next episode.